Hello and welcome to Adobe Live. Thank you so much for joining us today. If we haven't met yet, I am Jordan Danae Ellis, a community manager for Adobe Express, and I am here as always with Andy Lambert. Hello, Andy.
Hello, Jordan. How are you?
Good. Let's give a little rundown of what we're doing for folks who have never joined us for one of our end of the month recaps. Basically, the world of social media is massive and changing all the time, and Andy and I live in this world in different ways. And so at the end of every month, Andy so kindly puts together so much information about what has happened over the past month, and then I absorb it. And we're also here to answer any of your questions in chat. But why we are talking about social media, I'll introduce myself first. Like I said, am a community manager for Adobe Express, but I also have been a small business owner for the past 12 years. So I have used all of the free social media tools to grow the businesses that I've run. So I have like lots of experience with kind of grassroots, scrappy, not a lot of budget marketing. And then Andy, if you want to introduce yourself and why you know so much about this.
Yeah, well, I certainly resonate with a grassroots, scrappy, not
Yeah.
budget kind of thing, because coming from a software startup, which we created back in 2016, built predominantly using social media as our kind of main channel to generate the buzz and excitement around our business and build community, etc. Of which it grew to a stage that it was acquired by Adobe at the end of
Yeah.
December 21. And yeah, I've been working for Adobe ever since and bringing all of the social media functionalities into Adobe Express, which Jordan, you can touch on in a moment. But yeah, so bringing the kind of strategic lens, I've been spending a lot of time working very closely in partnership with Meta and Instagram and all of the usual suspects. So it kind of meant that knowing the direction of the social networks and where they're headed was kind of our jam, and we had to do it, right? Because if you're building a product that helps people do social media marketing, you better know what you're talking about. So that's kind of our thing. And over the course of the last month, once again, loads of stuff has changed and moved, and new features that are particularly useful. There's a few that are like you'll go away and want to use immediately because they're absolutely but I say this every month. If you're not joined us before, you've heard it for the first time, but some of you are going to be hearing this again. But like I always say that whilst I'll present a load of stuff that's changed, like some trends, some data, some updates and stuff, don't feel like you need to act on all of them. In fact, you don't need to act on any of them. Really, this is your opportunity to sit back, grab a drink, and then just like think, okay, in the next 45 minutes, I'll feel completely on top of what's happening in the world of social, and I don't need to worry about that. So that's the idea, not to make you feel anxious about, oh, I'm missing out on stuff. We don't need to do everything. We just need to do a few things well, because focus and consistency are the two most important words in the world of social. I think that probably resonates with you as well, right, Jordan?
Yep, absolutely. And also because we always get asked, this is available as a replay. So don't feel like you have to furiously take notes or anything. You can watch this whenever you want on the Adobe Express YouTube channel. So you can screenshot like things, you can rewatch it and skip to just the parts you want to watch again. So use this however you want. And the chat is so lively today. This is amazing.
Love
I just
it.
wanted to say hi to folks. Hi, Sean, Haley, Michelle, Kurtz, Moselle. Yeah, please drop your questions. We'll answer as many as we can. And I guess this is a good time too to say we're also extremely online. So if you're not watching live and have questions for us, I am at Jordan Danae Ellis and Andy is at Andy R. Lambert. And feel free to message us anytime and we'll do our best to get your questions answered.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling that one out. So
Yeah.
with that, let's dive into the deck and let's go straight into it. So first thing to call out as well, if you just want like a recap delivered to your inbox every single month along with strategies and tips, Jordan and I have a newsletter. So if you go to getsocialja.substack.com, just subscribe to this, entirely free, but you get all the recordings from the things we do on Adobe Live, plus all of like the key takeaways, the TLDRs, across all of that, quotes, inspiration, tips, basically keeping you up to speed with social media once a month. And this is really the live version of that, so subscribe to that and stay in the know. But Jordan, do you want to talk through content scheduler?
Yes. So this, we actually already had a question about this when we're getting
Love
multiple profiles, because that's the question we get asked constantly. And for everyone asking, I also want this very badly. So you're not alone. It's
it.
coming.
Let's go.
And if you don't know what that means, Adobe Express has an incredible feature that I love and use every day called Content Scheduler, which is the whole reason Andy and I know each other and work together. This is Content Cal in Adobe Express. And basically, it is your way to schedule all of your social posts in Adobe Express. So if you're creating content in Express, then it's super easy. And if you're using other content like photos just from your desktop or Lightroom or, Google Drive or Dropbox, you can bring your content in and schedule it on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Pinterest, or Twitter. And TikTok is next. Is that still the right spiel? Okay, great.
Right.
And my favorite way to use it, which is a trick that Andy taught me, you can see on the screen here, is you can schedule posts and then they are like white backgrounds. And then you can also draft posts, which are this kind of purpley blue. And so if you want to draft like your content ideas in advance, then you can have them all laid out in your weekly or monthly calendar, which gives you something to work off of. We've talked about this in so many of our videos, so feel free to like scroll back through the archives as we've talked about how to come up with what to post so many times, because that is like a huge struggle for lots of folks. So this is one of the best ways to stay organized for me. I can like have the drafted posts laid out in my calendar so I know what to post, and then it's a lot easier. Instead of looking at a blank page, I know what I'm doing. And then I can like schedule that or even post it on the fly if I need to, which is just so much easier than making up what you post as you go. If anyone can relate to that, it's not my favorite way to work. So
Yeah.
I love Content Scheduler, and I'm so happy that we have it.
I love it. Oh, what a brilliant walkthrough of that. Cool. All right. Well, let's get into it. And yeah, bit of information coming your way. Quite a few slides, but we're going to make this fun and engaging. And there's a lot of cool stuff that's happening. So, 3 components to talk through: data, trends, and updates. We're going to start with some data because I always love the nerdy numbers. So, end of Q1, these were the top apps worldwide. So this is a good idea and gives you a good kind of perspective on which apps are growing and the ones that are amassing the largest amount of users, and why that matters for us as content creators, small business owners, marketers, however we identify. This will be a fantastic way of predicting where we're going to get the highest amount of reach, where the most amount of people hang out, where there's most opportunity for us to distribute our content. So again, TikTok is leading, overtaking Instagram. So downloads, this doesn't relate to active users, but more people are downloading TikTok than any other application at the moment. So top apps worldwide. There's a clear reason why social media is as powerful as it is and continues to grow, because it's the most popular app that everyone has on their phone. Mm-hmm. So TikTok continues to lead despite threats of bans and all that stuff and all the things that are going on. As much as the media want TikTok to go away, or it doesn't matter to consumers, because they are still downloading TikTok, and they're also spending a lot of money on TikTok, which I find this particularly interesting, because the kind of consumer spend, as you see in the middle, is related heavily to like paying creators, so tipping them for their content as well. So creator monetization, we're going to touch a little bit on that as we go on today. It's also about people spending money to boost their posts, because that works really well on TikTok. Actually, when I started my TikTok, I started by boosting quite a lot of my content, just putting $10 behind it, for example. And that got several thousand views, and it gave me the start to build my TikTok from. So a lot of the spend happens on that because it works very effectively. And also from social commerce as well. So people buying products directly. So if you're a e-tailer, retailer, fashion brand, whatever, if you're doing any form of e-commerce, then TikTok are absolutely pushing on with e-commerce. All of the social apps fell over themselves to start enabling people to sell products. but TikTok is the one that's really sticking with users the most. So, if you're selling shoes or lipstick or whatever, you're able to tag those items within your content and allow people to directly purchase those, and that's driving a lot of the consumer spend. But monthly active users, Facebook still reigns supreme, but as you can probably predict, as the downloads are your like leading indicator. The more people downloading a certain app is most likely to translate to monthly active users over time. Interesting to see how high up Snapchat is as well. Some interesting stuff happening in Snapchat, which I'll touch on. Cool. There you go. Some nerdy data straight out the gate.
Perfect.
Cool. I wanted to pull this up as well, because this was a study about LinkedIn ads, but the reason I wanted to pull this out, because I think this is relevant to any form of video content. So whilst there's a lot of numbers here, let's kind of take the kind of TLDR and the most important takeaways here. So short form content, so let's pick up on this. Short form content always works the best when it comes to video. Naturally, we're trying to stop the scrolls. So when we can unfurl the message as much as we can within the first 7 to 15 seconds, basically consider this your hook, then we're going to see a lift in engagement. There's some sensible stuff, right? Some high text contrast, and obviously Adobe Express can really help you bring your designs to life to make sure it's simple and easy and readable. If you think most people are consuming your content on a mobile device, so making sure you're kind of aware and cognizant of that as you're producing your content. It's standard stuff, but sometimes good to have a bit of a reminder. Now, this is the one I want to call out. 175% lift in views when you're showing a person in the opening quarter. Eyes earn trust is a very common saying, right? And Jordan and I, we've both called this out a lot. Like, your personality, your personal brand is your small business superpower. That is a thing that makes you uniquely you, right? You can easily stand out in a sea of like dreary content when you can represent your own values, your beliefs, your mission, etc. So I like it when data absolutely backs up the kind of things that we've been speaking about, Jordan.
Yes. Feels great.
Yeah. You got any takes on this at all?
I mean, I think it's a good call out that like looking at what works well for ads very likely works well for, not ad content too. So this is all really good advice. But yeah, I think anytime you can, like, one, people who already know you will enjoy seeing a face that they recognize. But I agree with that, especially if you're running a small business or brand, like who you are is the thing that sets you apart. And it's the thing you can do, especially compared to larger brands. Like you can be the face of your messaging. So I think that's huge.
Yeah, totally with you on that. So they're the 2 bits of data. Don't worry, I'm not showing percentages or numbers too much throughout the course of this. That's kind of mostly your feel of that. Other than a couple of charts relating to trends. So YouTube Shorts continues to gather a lot of traction, which is that blue line. So more and more people are curious and searching for YouTube Shorts. A lot of people describe YouTube Shorts right now as underpriced attention, which is quite an interesting way of thinking about it, especially in the context of what you mentioned at the beginning of this call, Jordan, where you're looking for like free and scrappy ways to build your brand and promote, which is clearly where social media plays a huge role. And of course, we know that we spent a lot of time, many of us spent a lot of time building our Instagram followings, only for Instagram to change the algorithm and not be able to, and our content doesn't reach as many people. So yes. What also helps really is that whilst I don't necessarily advocate jumping on all these different social platforms, what I do advocate is experimentation with other new formats where it's easy to repurpose some of your existing content to explore new platforms. YouTube Shorts continues to grow, and it's growing really strongly. So definitely, I've called it out on a few months previous, but it continues to show fantastic momentum. And if you're making short form video, of which, as we know, that's a top performing content format. If you're making reels, you might as well cross post that to YouTube Shorts to experiment with, does that increase your reach? Does that increase your engagement? Do you find that you're building followers there? Because YouTube Shorts are wanting to promote it heavily right now. And that's where, that's a good clue for us in our strategies. It's like when social networks are really pushing a certain feature, they're likely to give that feature additional reach for us. And then I'm going to throw...
We just had a question in the chat about this, actually. So perfect.
Hey, perfect timing. Lemonade. Right. I try and avoid the noise of talking about new social media platforms because it makes social media is complex enough without throwing another damn platform into the mix. And a lot of them like have the kind of sparkle and fade, which you see for Clubhouse. You see this with why have the name just disappeared from my...
Which?
Oh,
Be real?
Thank you. My
You're
good
welcome.
Lord. Yeah, thank you for saving me there, Jordan. No, I had a complete blank on that. Yes, Be Real, which the downloads have started decreasing, their retention is decreasing. They're not gone away, but it's just a case of, you know, you tend to see this where there's a hype cycle and then it goes down again. Lemonade's a little different, I think, because of who the backer is. So Lemonade is a platform that's also owned by ByteDance, which is the company that owns TikTok.
That
has
I didn't know that.
You know, yeah, I mean, it's not marketed for obvious reasons, right? Because naturally they want to keep this outside of all the media frenzy of
fair.
things, right? They kind of want to keep that a bit behind the scenes. But yeah, it's the same company, and it's the reason it's grown so darn quickly, and it's a very smart move from ByteDance. They've just basically got a whole load of their most influential TikTok creators to talk about it, to show what they're doing on Lemonade, to sign up for it, to advocate for it. So you've already got, or Lemonade have already got, like, you know, the perfect start for launching something. And unsurprisingly, you know, where creators go, and creators have the trust in their community. So if creators say, this is a new thing, follow me on Lemonade, unsurprisingly, it gets pretty big. The way to think about Lemonade is if Instagram and Pinterest had a baby, right? So you've got the aesthetic of Insta, you've got the curation and collection elements of Pinterest. So naturally it fits very well with more fashion orientated brands with beautiful aesthetic, that kind of stuff. It's kind of like the anti-Be Real, if I'm honest. It is polished aesthetic. It is it's more like Instagram in that respect. But it just goes to show that there is a market out there for this. And they haven't even launched it officially yet. It happens in May. And already, you know, you can see it's pretty sizable. So they got all the means to go the distance, put it that way, for it not to be a Clubhouse or Be Real or whatever. So definitely worthwhile keeping an eye on. I always recommend with these new things, especially if you think you fit the demographic. So if you're a B2B, move along, don't worry about it. You know, so, or if more of a services orientated business, move along. I think, however, if you've got you know, you make beautiful bespoke sneakers, for example, this is probably a place for you to experiment with. And it always makes sense with these new things. Don't start posting on it. Don't feel like you have to start posting on it. Just casually observe. Also grab your handle as well. Always works well. Just to
That's my favorite trick. Grab it even if you don't use it. Yep.
Exactly that. Grab it and move along. But yeah, we'll continue to bring updates to this around what's happening. But yeah, it doesn't need to change your strategy. I would be curious about it, and if you think you fit like what their kind of user base looks like, then there's potential there. Because naturally, in the early stages of a platform like this, there's always, you know, a bit of first mover advantage. But I say that really carefully, where, like, you know, again, consistency and focus always wins the day. You know, it's no good just like jumping on Lemonade, going viral, you know, and it not translating into something that's consistent. So, you know, by all means explore, but don't feel like you need to change overnight. So,
and I'm just curious if anyone in chat is already signed up. So let me know if you are. I'm just curious.
That'd be really good to know. Right then, well, let's dive into some new features, shall we? We'll go network by network and let's see what they're up to. First one. Okay, so if you're not aware of who this dude is, this is Adam Mosseri. He's the head of Instagram. So yeah, worthwhile following if you care about Instagram, for sure. So he tends to kind of debunk some frequently asked questions, which is really quite useful just to hear that directly from Instagram themselves. Two very important ones. how many hashtags should I use in my posts? I've typically said 3 to 4 is max. He also said hashtags will not significantly change your reach. That seems to be a very contentious viewpoint. People saying, oh, my hashtags are brilliant. They really help. But I've yet to see anyone like get some really empirical data that says, I use 3 hashtags. 3 hashtags are better than 4. My general guidance on this, and it's always been my guidance, but I've lacked the data to actually prove it, is like, just don't sweat it too much. You know, add 3 or 4 that are relevant. Relevancy is key, right? But just focus more on the content itself, because it doesn't matter if you've used the best chosen hashtags on the planet. If your content's not up to par, then it's not up to par. So the hashtags are not going to fix bad content. Focus on the most important stuff, which is your audience and creating something to serve them, is my general take. And then this is a really good one, and this helps a lot for, you know, what I was talking about earlier, being able to repurpose your kind of Reels content across multiple platforms. So if you use things like CapCut or Adobe Express, in those instances, you're using third-party tools to create video that you'll end up posting on Reels. It's all good. So do not worry. And that also means, you know, and this is how I do it. I create my video on TikTok. I edit it on TikTok, and then I will take that, remove the watermark, and then post it to Instagram Reels. Just because, like, I've only had to edit the thing once and then post it to multiple different platforms. And knowing that the fact that doesn't impact reach is a very important thing to know. Any takes on this one, Jordan, before I move on?
I'm just so thankful about the hashtags not being like a main thing anymore, because I've been doing this. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for 12 years for, you know, business purposes, running my social. And I just feel like gone through every version of caring about hashtags, keeping them in a list, researching them. And like, that's great. But the fact that they might not be the most important thing to think about anymore, or they definitely aren't, is like, I'm very grateful for that.
Agreed with that. Cool. Some other things. We can now save posts with friends as well and save them into collections. This can be really nice for like,
oh, that's cool,
closer knit communities. There's a general trend happening on social at the moment, particularly on Instagram, where more people are sharing content in DMs and in private groups versus sharing to the feed. And I think there's a number of factors that are related to that, which I won't go into now. But I think what the social networks are starting to do is find ways that you can share things with others without the risk of like putting it into the feed and, you know, anyone commenting on your content. So Jordan, you and I have spoken a lot about like the rise of smaller communities as well, safe spaces where people are, you know, feel okay to share because they're amongst their peers. And this is just another example of features that help support that. But, you know, in our strategies, the kind of takeaway that we should think about that is, you know, find your tribe, find the places that you hang out in your kind of safe community spaces, or create one if one doesn't exist, because that will serve you very well. I mean, you're a perfect example of this. I always call you out on this one, Jordan, but I think it's worthwhile for those people that are not aware of your kind of background, worthwhile you kind of chiming in with your experiences here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that's so powerful about like the internet and social media too. So if you don't know, my businesses are in a very specific niche. It's like feminist pop culture nerdy folks, which is there are a lot of us and there also aren't. Like I don't think I'll ever have a million followers for that. Maybe. But I think that's something that's so cool about like kind of working in the limitations that you're dealt. Like from the beginning, I was like, okay, I don't think follower numbers is going to be my strategy. It's going to be making like very strong connections to the relatively small group of customers or viewers or listeners or whatever version of what I'm doing. And I think that's really cool. So if that's you too, like if you work in a very specific niche, if the folks who are interested in the same things as you, there aren't like millions of them, that's okay. And you can start a group if there aren't any others like you. Like that's what I did. And there's a lot of power in that too. It's just a different version of it. So I think that's great.
Yeah, fantastic point. Cool. We've got some nice, simple things, some tricks where we can now trim longer videos down to 60 seconds for stories. So really simple editing tool. So it allows us to take our longer content and repurpose this across lots of different formats. So sharing it in Reels, sharing it as a story, that kind of thing. So they're making that easier. We can also view our story reshares. So this is a new thing that we weren't able to track before. So now we can see that. It's always good just to keep an eye on those analytics so that you can learn from those and improve your content moving forward. Nice and simple. Instagram Notes is a weird thing. Have you seen or used this at all?
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that's what it was called. Yeah, I have seen it. I haven't used it. I don't know if I will.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I'm curious to know if anyone used it in the chat because it kind of feels a bit like old school Facebook circa
I was
2000.
gonna say it feels, well, I was thinking it feels like aim away messages. If anyone is 100 years old like me, that's what it feels like when you would like leave your away message up all day as you were like in school, just as your as your kind of status update. That's what it's giving me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm curious.
yeah, it is that kind of thing. We can now mention people in that, so it's another way of like,
Oh, that's
tagging
cool.
people or getting some form of like extra visibility. Um, yeah, curious to know why they built this anyway, but either way, just allows for extra visibility for you in Instagram. And now we can mention other people, like we could be like, creating a new webinar series with Jordan, for example. I could have something like that. So
That's cool.
another way, yeah, potentially way of using it. I don't think it's game changing, but it's certainly worthwhile knowing if Instagram is really your thing. This
Yeah,
is
Cody says the status thing is weird, and Michelle says I don't see the purpose or use for it. So if anyone loves them, let us know because I'm curious what you love about them.
cool. Yeah, I think no one's sharing. We don't have any enthusiasm around it, but we'll probably get some enthusiasm for this. So this is your professional dashboard, and there's been some good improvements to this. So you can see here, check today's Reels trend. So professional dashboard is available to anyone who's changed from a personal to a professional account, of which I would always recommend you doing on Instagram, to be honest. Whether you change it to a business or a creator account, doesn't really matter. But it's definitely a lot better if you're using Instagram for a certain purpose to move it away from a personal, because you'll get more insights like this. So this is your professional dashboard. So check today's Reels trends. We can see trending audio and trending hashtags as well. Interesting why they'd add that given what the head of Instagram just said, but hey, there we go. So if you want to add the 3 to 4 hashtags or whatever, you can see that. But it also does give you an opportunity to see the things that are happening right now. So that's where hashtags are particularly useful. So if you're a business that has something to do with WrestleMania, and I'm going to be clutching at straws here because clearly that's not, you can see me. So WrestleMania is not clear. But yeah, this gives you an opportunity to explore the things that are working right now, and be able to inspire you for new content that you might want to create. They've also then, as part of these updates to all of your kind of professional dashboard, they've improved the Reels editor. As you can see, it kind of looks a bit more CapCut-y, it's fair to say, of
Yeah.
so we can edit and control the audio components. It's still not the perfect video editing tool, but it is going to help things and help you progress. They've also added more stuff to insights as well. So as I said, there's a lot of good stuff happening to professional accounts, both creator and business. These Reels insights, we'll have seen this on our other post types, so our feed posts, stories, etc. But now we can see in our Reels, how have they impacted our reach amongst our followers and then non-followers. And I always pay a lot of attention to this bit because your non-followers is all about how your content is extending your reach beyond your current audience as well. And also we can see our average, which I'm not showing here, but our average watch time, which is super important because
Yeah, that's great to know.
yeah, because if people are all dropping out at 3 seconds, your hook's not strong enough. And that really is like we saw in the data right at the beginning of this session, your hook in the first 7 to 15 seconds is absolutely essential. So seeing where people drop out, super useful. This I adore. I think it's such a cool move. They've
I
also made
love that.
yeah, who's followed you, who's engaged with you, and you can be like, hey, thanks for following me. Who's engaging with us? Like, oh, thanks for liking, follow them back or whatever. Just makes it feel more community orientated rather than being like,
Yeah.
hey, here's my content, come like it. It's like make your audience feel like a community, and that I adore that. So in the same way that that you would do on the Facebook group that
I was just getting ready to say, yeah, that was one of my favorite things in our Facebook group, that you could send like an automatic welcome message. Well, you could automatically tag all the new members, then you could write a personalized message, which was so cool. And I feel like that was just such a nice way to like, I mean, I don't know if I've actually talked about this on our streams ever, but one of the first tips I ever heard about social media was like your platform, like you're kind of hosting on it. So like be a good host of your platform. I feel like welcoming people in is one of the best things. So that's super cool. And I'm going to use this all the time. That's great.
love that. They've improved virtual gifts as well. So this is more for like your creators that are building a significant presence. So they're leaning a lot in on this kind of creator monetization stuff, which we spoke about with TikTok rather, and why TikTok is driving a lot of revenues as well as a lot through this creator monetization. So people can gift you these virtual gifts, etc. So this works within lives, reels, or whatever. This, to be honest, this is only really suitable and relevant for those that have significant followings, and you're going down that kind of more creator track, more kind of influencer. But this is applicable to everyone.
I can't wait.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, so good. So good.
So the things that shows how sad we are when we're just like, they've given us more links. It's amazing.
It is though.
It is so good. So we only, in our Instagram bios, we could only ever have one link. Now we can have up to 5. So we can draw attention to numerous things. So it reduces our reliance on third-party tools like Linktree or other link in bio tools, because we can just have it all directly in our Instagram.
Amazing.
Well,
beautiful.
Better user experience and not having to click to go onto another application to look at your stuff. So there you go. Absolutely, this is one that everyone should start using if you're on Insta. Cool. Broadcast channels for Facebook groups. We touched on Facebook groups. The social networks have started to go wild for these kind of broadcast groups. This sits quite nicely in the stuff that I was talking about earlier, where there's a rise of more private sharing, less to the feed. So broadcast channels are basically like subscription lists. It's a really nice way to make sure everyone gets your content, right? Mm-hmm. And we all want that. So we've seen this apply to Instagram. We've seen this apply to Facebook as well. Now it's in Facebook groups as well. So, a good example would be, the Adobe Insiders Facebook group has over 100,000 members now, I think it does. Yep. Done a great job of building that one, Jordan. So of course, there are so many different topics in a group with 100,000 people. So there'll be certain spheres of interest amongst the 100,000 people. So one of them might be social, for example. So to make sure the people that have the right level of interest get the content they need, broadcast channels are really useful for that. So kind of similar thing to like newsletter subscriptions. So
that's really cool.
What's your thought on this, Jordan?
I think that's great. And we have had the eternal struggle of like how to get certain information to certain people in Facebook groups. So I think this is massive.
There's so many things. Yeah, as I said, broadcast groups, broadcast channels rather, applicable across so many different areas too. So you might want to go ahead and have a look into that as well, not just in Facebook groups either.
Yeah.
And making it easy for us to kind of repurpose content across different
Thank God. This is so nice.
Cross post to multiple pages at the same time, right? So if you've got multiple Facebook pages, easily create a clip from your Facebook Live. Obviously, Jordan and I will do a lot of Facebook Lives, etc. Or we used to before we got too busy with actual work. How dare it?
I know. This is so nice, though. I feel like so many updates are like we repurpose content like as creators, lots of us do, and I feel like the platforms are finally like making it easier for us, which is thank you for that. Definitely. This is great.
Definitely. And same, like if you're watching someone else's live, and you're like, oh, that's really cool, make a little clip from it.
Yeah,
it's content for you. You know, obviously you tag the creator naturally, but it's a way of championing the people that you're watching. It's a way of you creating content as well. So I think that's a really smart move, really useful feature. We can also add the first comment onto Facebook stories now, the same way that we can, like,
Okay.
on content scheduler, you can add the first comment on Instagram. A
Yeah.
lot of people use that for links they might want to add, hashtags they want to add, they might want to mention people. Basically keeps the caption nice and clean and have a first comment and gives it the kind of like bump of engagement. You can do that on Facebook stories now. Comments isn't really a thing on Facebook stories. I don't even know how many people are using Facebook stories. So like, maybe it's useful, maybe not, but
I thought reactions were like messages. I'll have to play with this.
Yeah,
that's confusing to me.
So yeah, so this is a bit of a curious one, but if you're into Facebook stories, then this might be useful.
Perfect.
Talking of stories, AI generated stories, Facebook are falling over themselves to try and get you creating content. And there's a reason for this, is that because the kind of narrative that Facebook is dead is what a lot of people are saying. You can clearly see from the monthly active users that it's very much not. But what they are trying to do is like reinvigorate like our Facebook pages, which did die about like 5 to 7 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Because suddenly all the reach disappeared. But they're really trying to get that back, particularly with like Facebook Reels, which are pushing heavily, and also Facebook Stories. So AI generated stories, basically this takes all of the stuff that you've taken, not all of it, it apparently carefully selects the stuff that you've posted in your Facebook feed and curates it together in a story and presents that back to you. So in the same way, I don't know if you kind of think about the collections. If you've got an iPhone, right, you get little kind of little collections of photos which kind of animate with some nice music behind it. I'm kind of picturing something like this. So jury's a bit out because it's naturally like taking away our control from creating content, but we're going to see a lot. This is early days, but I think we'll see a lot of these things that are designed to kind of help us want to share by taking away some of the big lift of, like, you know, blank canvas syndrome, as I call it, where it's like, oh, I want to post, what should I do? Where they'll increasingly be suggesting stuff for you to post. So I don't know, do you have a take on this one, Jordan?
I'm always so torn between, like, yeah, anything that makes my life easier, great, which is, again, like we talk about Adobe Express all the time. I love the template. Like, that's the exact same thing, solving the same problem. The only thing that I get a little weirded out about is, like, I don't like the idea of content for the sake of it, like just putting things out there. And the idea of doing that en masse is my nightmare, of my feed just being like AI generated whatever captions and images. So that's my only thing, is like, I just don't want more like nonsense. But if it's good, cool. I just want to be careful of that. Like, I think it's better to not post anything than post just like whatever. But we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. I think jury's out on this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Twitter. Let's have some fun with this one. I had been avoiding talking about it for months, but now there's some really important things that we need to share. So firstly, Twitter open sourced their algorithm. What that actually means is, in normal person speak, is they made it visible for around what actually determines how you get seen on Twitter. So just made it easier to understand. Likes, interestingly, are the most important things. Then retweets, then replies. I would have thought replies would have been the most significant, because comments are the most significant thing across other platforms. So yeah, that's interesting. Don't put links in content. That applies to every single social platform. Don't link, because it marks you as spam, basically. It doesn't want people off the channels. And then blue extends reach. So Twitter blue, which I'm going to come to in a minute. None of this is particularly game changing. This is really interesting. You are clustered, posting outside it hurts. What that means is, like, pick a niche and stick with it. You are clustered. So if you regularly post on Twitter, and this does happen on other social networks, but it's never been kind of proven or anyone's come out to say about it, is that they know what you're talking about. So if if it's me, I'm pretty one-track minded to talk about social media. So I'm in that kind of cluster where, there are regular people that engage with my content that see it all the time. And interestingly, what Twitter have said is like, if you're posting about your specific niche, you go out that to say, here I am in the park walking the dog. It's not going to go anywhere. You're outside of your kind of circle, or your cluster, as they call it, which is really interesting. And I think that probably speaks volumes about just general best practice, which is, have a narrative, have a strong audience focus, and have a real kind of clear understanding of what you're trying to talk about and what you represent. And that definitely helps. And then making up or misspelling words. So use things like Grammarly, basically. And I'd love to know, and this is so useful to see, like just like 5 or so like really easy things to go, okay, here's my check marks for what does or what doesn't work, for example. I'd love to see it on the other networks.
And just a time check, we have like 15 minutes, just flagging that.
Oh, cool. Good point. Time to speed up. Fortunately, I've done the bulk of it. Verified organization. So unless you're basically, unless you pay for Twitter as a business, you can no longer advertise. And that is a huge thing. So what the main message here is that Twitter is a pay-to-play platform now. So unless you're paying, your content isn't going to go anywhere. So this is a key thing that's just changed. So basically, if you're not willing to pay, and as an organization, if you want to advertise, it's basically a no-go now, because you have to pay $1,000 a month before you even start advertising. So basically forget advertising.
No, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And if Twitter is your thing, you're going to have to pay to get your content seen. And if you don't want to pay, move along. Other platforms are there for you. I'm gonna ignore that one rather. And I've already touched on this, but basically, I'm saying the same thing. You're going to have to pay if you want to be seen. I'm going to go through, because I think Twitter's pretty much killed it with that. So I'm going to go through that. But also, it's worthwhile knowing that Twitter will soon not be known as Twitter. It's going to be called X Corp soon. So,
no way.
Yeah. So they're rebranding. So that's already kind of gone through, but they haven't. You'll see this unfold over the next few months, because this is their everything app. So they want everyone to be on the application, not just to do social media, but to pay their bills, to have the credit cards, to have everything through it. In the same that you've got like super apps, as they called it, like WeChat in China. That's his mission. He has form in achieving remarkable things. So I'm not going to call it, but I'm skeptical, it's fair to say.
We'll see. Yeah.
LinkedIn, couple of things. Once again, private sharing. Share a post with multiple members at once. I love this because you find something really interesting and you can share it to multiple people in a DM. So a great way to start up conversations with those that you really want to meet with. Be like, hey, Jordan, I thought of you as I saw this. I thought this would be really useful. What a nice, meaningful thing to have, and a fantastic way of you kind of starting up meaningful conversations in a non-spammy kind of giving way. So now you can do that to multiple people at once. It's a really good tactic.
I like
Verification is coming to LinkedIn. So, and this actually works really nicely. So, for example, if you work for Adobe, LinkedIn will now validate your LinkedIn profile to confirm that you actually work for Adobe. Because there's a lot of people that say they work for companies, not just Adobe, and they don't. So that's why LinkedIn are verifying that, which is super useful.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is also adding more algorithmically suggested content. And what that means, and we've seen the same in Instagram and Facebook, it means that you're going to see more content from outside your kind of friend graph, if you will.
Cool.
So people you don't know, you're going to see more content in their feed. And that means more opportunity for you to get seen when you don't have a large follower base. Increasingly, you've called out followers earlier, Jordan, increasingly follower numbers are not the most important thing. TikTok, more analytics coming, and TikTok analytics are absolutely baller, if I'm honest, because this latest update I'm getting a notification every half an hour as to how my post is performing in its first 12 hours, because it's so important, like how your post performs in the first 12 hours. Not every one of you are as nerdy as me that really care about that, but I think that's really useful for you to understand when, how it's performed within the first 12 hours, and then be able to respond to those comments quickly. Because if you want that content really to go and go far, getting maximum engagement in the first 12 hours is an essential component. And now we can look into that and even get notifications that kind of help
That's
us,
awesome.
which is really cool. I'm always missing comments. Like TikTok's really good at notifying you when you've got those new comments. Responding to those immediately generates engagement, and you can see the performance of it go up. I don't care about like every piece of content in the same way, because you've got lives to live. But sometimes you post something that you really want to get traction on, and that's where that kind of, like, we call it like post babysitting, just to try and like bump up as much engagement in the first 12 hours can help.
That's a good call. Like, not every single thing you post, but if there's something very important, like a launch or a new video or something that you care about, that's a good time to do it.
Exactly that. They've got a play next option on here, as you can see here. So this is your playlist.
Oh, cool.
You can organize your content into playlists. So, you've got a series of things you're doing, make a playlist. It means that you can keep people on your content without them scrolling on to the next post. So I think that's really useful for TikTok. I'm going to gloss over that because that takes a bit longer to explain in given time, and it's not as important. And the rest, everyone else. So only a few things here. WhatsApp are doing broadcast channels too, so you can subscribe.
It's almost like everyone does the same thing at the same time.
Exactly. So yeah, I don't need to explain this. We've already explained it. But another way of you creating like a broadcast community, and now you can do it to more people. So you can have up to over 1,000 people in a WhatsApp group.
Oh, cool.
Now. So as we know, like, there's few better ways of like reaching people so darn directly than WhatsApp. Obviously use it very judiciously because it's easy to spam, but that can be super powerful when you've got like a group that you really want to alert to something particular. Can really help with engagement there. I've spoken about YouTube Shorts, some really good analytics that help you understand how people are finding you. And I think this is so useful. Cool. YouTube is your thing. Basically, where are people finding you from? And this helps you kind of evaluate, how your typical YouTube content is working, your kind of keywords that you're using, whether it's like social media roundup or whatever, or is it shorts actually working for you? So that's really useful. Podcasts come to YouTube Music as well. So
fascinating.
YouTube.
Also, I love this podcast. That's really funny.
Oh, cool. I love it. I was curious about this. I don't know the podcast, so I'll speak to you offline about this one.
Yeah.
So this is a really nice place for you to merchandise your podcast if you run one, because you've got YouTube's power of 2.5 billion monthly users. Which naturally extends your reach beyond what you could get off Spotify, which is typically the place where I've always had my podcast. So definitely something.
Well, and lots of people post just like a video, but this makes way more sense to me because I've always been like, why post like a blank video of just my podcast audio? So I think that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is the final one, which is Substack, which is our newsletter platform.
Yeah.
Once again, like a private community tool. They've decided to go after Twitter too, noticing that a lot of other people are kind of getting rid of Twitter. And I think this works quite well because it's kind of tied to who you follow in your subscriptions anyway. So, and it goes back into that narrative of those smaller communities, safe spaces, that kind of thing. Whereas Twitter being the town square, I don't know, maybe that whole sharing to a broader feed is just kind of going away, potentially. Anyway, my ruminating.
Well, and we've talked about that too, where like the beginning of the internet was like forums and like direct chats and stuff. And there seems like, then it swung really wildly the other way of everything going viral and everything, what social media is. And it feels like it's leveling out a little bit. Because I think we all love that,
Yeah. leveling out in like those kind of smaller communities. Is that what you're?
Yeah, like going back to personal conversations or smaller groups, and everything isn't about having a million followers and going viral. Um, and I think that's nice. It's my
I'm
personal favorite way to use the internet, so I think that's great.
I am definitely with you. So you made it through, and we only had to skip 2 slides, but they were the least interesting ones anyway. So what we got here. So new editing and analytics tools, making reels easier than ever to create. So lots of good stuff from Instagram, including those Instagram profile links. Absolutely adore those. Twitter, full pay to play. Going to be interesting to see how that performs, because the other social networks for sure are watching that, and no doubt about that. I've spoken lots about private content being shared in DMs, the increasing rise of those private communities, those smaller groups as well. The impact of AI is only just starting, right, through those AI generated stories. So content's going to get easier, but to your point, Jordan, is like, how easy do you actually want to make it? Because we still want to stand out. And then as we started, we'll finish where we started, which is just keep a close eye on Lemonade should you be in the kind of space where you think your audience would fit. And there is our social handles. But do we have any questions that we can address in the last 5 minutes or so, Jordan?
So we have a content scheduler question, which we might as well answer while you're here.
Sure.
How do you schedule video? Someone is asking how to. Yeah.
So you can do it right now through the normal way of scheduling posts. Instagram Reels support will be coming very, very soon. So stay tuned for that. But also stay tuned, probably in the next 2 weeks, like video creation and sharing will be very, very different. So, and I can't wait. I can't say any more right now, but and I can't wait to show you. But give it 2 or so weeks. I think probably, the next live that we'll do, or the one after that, the June live we'll do, we'll probably be able to go into that and show you it live, which is very exciting.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We also just had a question from chat. Is Substack a good option? And let's talk about that a little bit. We love it. I think I will be honest, you run it more than I do. Like you actually build it, but I follow a few artists and I think it's great. What do you think about Substack?
Yeah, I like it. It's a newsletter platform, so content creation lift is a lot bigger. It takes me quite a long time to pull together the newsletter, etc. But the nice thing about it, and the way that the philosophies of them building it, is like you own your audience, right? So you've got their email addresses. You can take that and do whatever you want with it. They've opted into you, and I like that, right? Because as much as I love social, we need to be clear about what it is and where its limitations lie. We spend a lot of time building an audience that we don't own, right? So, and we are not in control of whether our content will ever be seen if they change something. They could make it all pay to play like Twitter. The rug can always be pulled. So that's where Substack's really quite useful in making sure you maintain an element of ownership to your community. So social is always going to be the best thing for driving increased reach. So you're not going to find new people through Substack. Substack's a way to kind of collect the interest together. So consider it as like the second stage of a broader funnel, where your social is all about like awareness, getting your content out there, using underpriced attention like YouTube Shorts, for example, to drive awareness. And then the second stage of that, kind of capturing that interest in like a recurring kind of thing, like a Substack subscription or whatever it might be. So or you might just have a blog subscription or email subscription on another platform. It doesn't really matter, but as long as you're kind of curating your community somewhere that you own. So that's why I like Substack.
Yeah, as much as we talk about social media, I like that being the main thing we talk about. It is not good to have all of your eggs in the social media basket. You should have something else. So your own website, your own newsletter, like a place where you own the conversation a little more. And I'll say the chat is excited, I think, like me, about the idea of the landscape changing a little bit. Cody says, I like the idea of things going back to intimate communities. And Penny agrees that it feels like we're going from a look at me world back to one-on-one conversations, which I think, there is something that's really nice about how much you can broadcast on social. Like, I mean, even the fact that like my small business, I have like 17,000 followers. The fact that I can reach 17,000 people like without having paid for that is wild to think about. The only way to do that without social media would have been to like buy an ad or like run a commercial or a billboard, or I don't even know. Like the fact that we can just do that is amazing. But I don't think that's, like, for me at least, the most powerful part of social media has always been the connections, like that you can connect with new people, but then build those relationships. And so I think the fact that, I think, things do swing a lot, but it did feel like everything was moving towards bigger, 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 bigger for a while. And now it feels like there are still platforms that are very much focused on, going viral and the biggest numbers and the biggest amount of viewers. But it's nice that there are things that like lean into the real people too.
Definitely.
So it's nice to do both. It's a good balance, like everything, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. I think that is it for us this week. Thank you all so much for joining us. If you have any questions in between our videos, feel free to find Andy and I online at Jordan Danae Ellis and at Andy R. Lambert. And we'll be back with more content for how to make your content creation easier. Hopefully this helps you in your journey to like not be overwhelmed, have some good information, and hopefully just get the things that you want to make out into the world faster and easier. So thank you so much, Andy, for all the research that you did this week. This is very lovely. Thank you for sharing it with us. And if you want to get the recap of everything, you can join our Substack. The link is everywhere. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks,
bye, everyone.
See you soon. Bye-bye.